get 2 minutes after Illis.
All right, being 5:15, I'd like to call the Board of Public Works November 6th meeting to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Get a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Dorsey, second by Mr. Herter. The agenda. Any discussion on that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next is public input. Seeing none, we can move on. Looking for approval of the October 2nd meeting minutes.
I move to approve the October 2nd meeting minutes.
No second.
Motion made by Mr. Herter, second by Mr. Ritchie to approve the October 2nd meeting minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Wastewater treatment plant updates, Robert?
All right, been included as notes. I'll kind of brush over some of the subjects that were in those notes. Sludge hauling has since stopped. They got a little over 700,000 gallons. Just waiting for soybeans to come off. It should be soon. Hopefully the weather holds out enough where the fields are dry enough that we can finish spreading the sludge. The amount of rain that we got over the last couple weeks, Ben's been keeping an eye on what we have for the amount of liquid coming into the waste treatment plant, and he's not really seen the spikes that we used to get in the past with that type of rainfall. So it's a good sign. It's not a for sure indicator because of course the river still isn't at spring levels or anything, but just to see in past falls when we did get that type of rain, now we're not seeing that huge spike and then a slow level off. It's more of a little spike, in which he kind of says more than likely it's some of the sump pumps that are still illegally connected throughout the city that are starting to kick in and adding to that upswing, but that's a good sign there.
So you're indicating that as part of the downtown project, buttoning things up, new laterals, new mains, that may be seeing a noticeable benefit to the plant.
And probably the stuff down here too. The fifth ward. I'm sure that.
We're still waiting on the coating for the second digester. What Corcoran did is they hired their own third party to come in, take samples off. They took them back and are doing the analysis. All indications are that Sherwin-Williams, without releasing what they know at this point, Corcoran thought it'd be best, being that they're covering the cost of the natural gas right now, that they do their own investigation to try to get this resolved quickly. With the condition that digesters in right now and being empty for this long and seeing some of the flaking that's occurring without any exposure to liquid, that it's best that we keep it offline, because if we try to bring it online, more than likely they'd have trouble with the stuff flaking off to the point where you're having trouble within months with that coating getting into the pumps. So hopefully we get a resolution of that quick. The problem with that is I'm not certain on the application, but I'm pretty sure that it's something that, unless there's some way to tent it and heat it, that it can't be done in winter. But I'll leave that to the specialists, and when we get down to who's covering what on that to get that recorded. Ben's fighting the rain freeze thaw cycles that we had in the last week to try to get some of his winter projects or his prep for winter projects completed. They cleaned out the sludge thickener that they're having issues on one of the valves. This was grouted 37 years ago, and when they brought it down and they were cleaning it out, they noticed some of that grout is starting to release. Well, anybody that knows anything about pumps and water and when you start introducing a lot of grit to it, it makes them wear a lot quicker. So they were able to clean it out, clear some of those areas that seem to be coming apart, and installed that new valve and adjusted the pumps to get it back online. Happy to report that the fourth employee that started is past his 6-month probation. He's actually doing really good. He just completed his fourth DNR certification, so he's moving right along, which is good to see. And he talked a little bit about the pesticide report that he brought up a couple months back. The indication with everything he dug into kind of implicated that when they did some spraying for pests on the premises, kind of led to that indicator that they noticed that there was some pesticides in one of the samples. They've since been pretty much pesticide free or under the tolerable limit. So he's filling out this report to try to get it to an annual test that they have to take down at the plant. Does anybody have any questions on that or any of the wastewater rules?
Further questions for Mr. Garski? Thanks, Robert. Bond, they approved the lighting plan for the new city parking lot.
So, I met with Mike Frederick from NLU out at the parking lots. This is a crude sketch, just kind of an indicator of where the lights that we're thinking about placing there would go. Of course, it's not to scale, so it looks like, wow, you have this area with a bunch, but to try to illuminate the areas that needed the most help, one being the intersection of Lincoln Court, right at the parking lot entrance, and then one pointing, these arms can only go back to back, they can't be offset. So if we went back to back there, it would kind of light up that stop area, and for any pedestrians that walk towards that center aisle. The next one down, which is a double A-arm, would help illuminate towards the sidewalk more, and then in that critical area right in the middle of the parking lot where you kind of have that natural offset where you have to go around the electrical transformers and cable boxes. There's already an existing light that sits right there that kind of lights up that area. There is some light that not direct lighting, but indirect lighting that comes off of the 2 lights that First State Bank had installed right in that area. So we were thinking about going with an additional light up there with an arm coming over. It's just very tight in order to place it on city property without having some type of extra easement to put a pillar there. so they can mount their light. If we find that it's not enough, it's actually an easy fix because they have wiring that's already up in that northern island. So they'd be able to run it down into the light. He's also adding one right there at that location to kind of illuminate that entrance and those parking stalls on that side. We were looking at maybe placing one that would be on the end of that sidewalk that's in the center island. That center roll, yep, all the way over to the west, right there. It's just there was no good way to incorporate that without kind of shutting down any type of entrance onto that sidewalk area without pretty much blocking that whole end off. So that's what we have for lighting. I know Jason has some things that he's bringing to the commission for this plan for them to cover the costs of the fixtures and poles, and then we would be charged that unit cost for each fixture added to like every other city light that we now pay for.
Are there any lights gonna be on the entrance to North Water Street?
It's still, we're still in debate on what we're gonna do for that entrance next year. If there isn't an actual lighting option for an entrance in there, the light pole that would be placed right to the east of the entrance that's coming out onto North Water, those poles are capable of going back to back. So you could go back to back with another arm and a decorative fixture like you have facing the street.
I just think that's a very important spot because we are funneling people to cross the street right there
Absolutely.
and traffic to come and go.
So there will be one fixture there for sure that will already be illuminating that area and that crosswalk because it's like right where that hand is. But if there's a need for more lighting, or we feel like it's not lit enough, that there's still that option to go back to back on those poles.
What about when you come on to St. John's there? Is there gonna be anything for light at all there?
There is lighting on that. Not certain where that next light pole is down. I want to say it's right on that corner.
There is one, and I can't even
between the
remember
buildings.
which side of the corner it's on. I think it's on the St. John side.
You're right.
Now keep going.
Is this?
No,
Robert, this one going?
no,
No,
Back-
more to
back
the
north.
north.
back to
to
the
north.
back,
Yeah.
back there. Yeah, there it is.
Oh,
Right there. Yeah,
Okay,
and that
Thanks,
one
Chad.
still exists.
just figured I'd be a little dark
Mhm.
building wise.
And they do have some really pretty lights in that alley that they have strung across as kind of a garden.
They had.
They took them down.
Oh,
Oh, I
had-
suppose they had to because of all the, yeah. Are they gonna put them back up? Because they were cute.
Had.
I was just wondering, if you need it double? It's one. You already lit up the one. part. Well, you got double there, so you need that double, just that back one, does that need either? Because you already lighted it up. the other pole.
And like I say, it's kind of skewed the way it's drawn versus if you do it to scale, it's kind of set back and that one is angled just a little bit more if you're standing on site. Yeah, it's more towards where that hand is because it's on the southern part of that island. So it's almost a little better than 4 foot until you're actually past that island. In order to get it, so the length is probably right over that first stall. And then again, if it's something where there's a feel that it's too illuminated, that it's something that doesn't have to remain back to back.
Going into this project, one of the common themes that we heard about from several people was that they didn't feel comfortable going back there and they wanted more. Now, whether this is the right amount, come on, has to be maybe looked at, but definitely we heard comments going into this from all the public information that people wanted to feel safer back there. It felt too dark before, so.
I was relying a lot on Mike's suggestions. He's way more familiar with illumination than I am. Figured at this point, we would run with this and we can kind of tweak it if need be, but at least we have all the structures and mounts in place where we need them the most at this point.
Quite a bit of parking in the back. Maybe one of the parking spots in the middle of the one. The more middle section. Sidewalk or that's the first city.
It's an option and we talked about that, but knowing that we tried to get as many parking spaces as possible. I didn't want to come and say we're gonna take one away to put in a light fixture. That's why I was kind of looking at the northernmost point, and if we're to put one raised structure where you're actually pouring a post mount. So if any car did butt up to it, it's actually running into the concrete portion and not the light base itself. That would be an option that we could definitely pursue later.
Downtown parking where it is, spots get more percent.
I think we gotta see what this does. Then if we have to add one, we add one.
What did
I
First
don't think
State,
there's any of us here that can tell you whether that's gonna.
Yeah,
eliminate
how
that
much
parking
lighting
lot or
comes from
not.
First State?
how much lighting did First State put in? Anything back there?
They have two.
So we might be getting lighting from that,
You do get some
Yeah.
lighting, although they have one single fixture,
right?
but it's only sticking out 4 feet towards the north in both those areas.
Is there, I mean, would there be a possible option to piggyback on their poles? No? I
We
didn't,
looked into that and it gets so complicated with trying to assign, okay, our light fixture is this, how do you separate the costs of that plus the cost of electricity you'd have to remeter that. And being solely on their property, then it's city property on private property type of scenario.
I think like your suggestion though is you're able to add lighting back there if we need to in the future. Take a look and see what it looks like.
I'll make a motion to approve the lighting plan for the city's new parking lot. And motion made by Mr. Darcy, second Mr. Ritchie, to approve the lighting plan for the new city parking lot. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next thing is the director's report.
I have 2 service anniversaries. Glenn Besaw, street operator, completed 36 years of service on November 4th. And Ed Berto, street operator, will complete 3 years of service on November 9th. As I talked about a little bit at the budget meeting. I did apply on October 31st for LRIP grant for North Street, which was it's pictured right up there. I selected this section being it's in very bad condition. Some of the areas are 6 to 8 inches wheel rutted below curb line. The other thing that I looked at as I kind of reviewed the areas that would qualify was underground utilities. There we have only the start of sanitary mains that run center intersection and then to the south. So the sewer utility actually does not run in those 2 block sections. Another thing that turned me onto this section was the fact that with completing Avon and Lyons and Lima in 22 and them coming out of a new construction area into that rough of a road stretch, it'd really be nice. Those are the 2 worst blocks out of that section. And with this type of program, being a smaller funded program, it'd be nice to include the whole stretch, but the projects for this program tend to be smaller because the funding's smaller and it's for Wapaka County, and all the municipalities that reside in Wapaka County have a chance at this, and you'd hate to present too big of a project that would pull from other communities and not kind of be shared throughout. So I took these 2 segments, got a probable cost, filled out the application, and we'll see if that goes through or not. I've been working on the Paisley rating to update the WISDOT website. I'm about 25% done. Luke and I will go out again this week to cover more sections to get this completed. This is where you're actually looking at every block section to see what the road condition is, and it's rated on that 1 to 10 scale, 10 being brand new and 1 being in need of total reconstruction. Before I get into the downtown construction, on November 1st, I don't have this in my memo, but it just came up in an email. The final PS&E for next year's North Water Street project was submitted to the state. The only thing that was not included, and they didn't have time, is the DNR hazmat specialists. We're unable to get back to the DOT in time to go over the final phase 2.5 information for the current plans that have to do with any readings for contaminated soil that we found this year and what they did all the coring for that hazmat investigation. So once that is complete, we'll do the final resubmittal of anything that has to go in the specials that revolve around dealing with hazardous material. And then for the downtown construction, I was informed a couple hours ago by email that paving that was supposed to take place tomorrow was moved to Wednesday. Now, the reason they gave was because the weather was not favorable on Tuesday. My reply back was we're looking at rain on Wednesday, so that's not favorable for paving. We did discuss back and forth, and that's why I was hoping I would get a final clarification to see if some of the transactions back and forth didn't encourage them to show up tomorrow, but I received no updated email as of right now. So as far as I know, from our last email transaction, the paving will be completed by Friday. When they start is not determined yet. I hope I come in tomorrow and see the paver there, but that's not guaranteed. As far as everything else goes, for that project, it is considered completed until next spring. There's a lot of backfill that was placed during a wet time with wet soil, kind of inconsistent, but they realized that they're pretty much backfilling to prevent trip hazards. I told them there's no need to go to the extent of hydro seeding it, because if the seeds actually go dormant and then germinate in spring and they're trying to re-level, they're gonna be dealing with volley rootgrass and everything else while they're trying to do the finalization of topping it off, but they chose to do it that way, and that's what we have down there right now. But the concrete work is finished up down there. We're just waiting on the paving.
Yep, does it look like when they do the Main Street next year, that their water level's gonna slow the project from starting early? Like this year, we know we had to wait for the water level to get down before they could start digging everything up. Now that most of the underground stuff is done, is that gonna be an issue with the high water?
There's one issue with what they have left to do next year, and that's doing all the storm sewer.
Yeah.
And if the water is high, I could see it causing problems or delay starts. Being a state project, when they let it in February, and they find out what contractor it is, they do have a schedule kind of in place now for starting June 1st. But between the contractor and the state and everything, and the conditions that happen, it would be up to them to determine if they want to try to come in earlier or not. It's one of the things that's kind of defined in the specials. They lay out a schedule, and whether they have the ability to stick to that or can start early, I'm unsure, because we don't know what next year will bring. But having that complete outfall to do on Wisconsin Street, they have to go through that parking lot and all the way out to the river, because that one's undersized. So if we don't have decent river levels, I could see that creating an issue. Right now in the specials, one of the things they talked about is doing it in 3 phases. It's like a mini starting phase. And the reason why it's in like that, the section from Shawano Street to just past the new parking lot was one segment. But when the state laid out their detour for Highway 15, when they have to do the train tracks on 45, those train tracks are going to be closed. They have to be closed between July 4th and Labor Day. And in that time frame, they have a 30-day window to complete the work on those tracks. And the main detour for Highway 45 traffic is Mill Street, Wolf River, Shawano. So in the specials, they have it where this intersection must be completed before July 1st. So if they have a little later start, it's still in there that must be totally completed in order to account for the other state project for that detour traffic. So they,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Let's say, go back for a second. We had conversations with the engineers, and I don't know if we relayed that quite yet, because we just had that not too long ago. But this is gonna be in segments. So if you want to kind of go through those segments a little bit in more detail.
Right now, it's listed as two segments from Shawno Street to just past where the new parking lot will be. So they'll go in, they'll take out everything, they'll start working on the stormwater. Or all the storm sewer that goes in that area and go through stages as far as getting that totally complete. Once that is 100% complete, they would do the same thing from that point at the parking lot through the intersection at Pearl down to the limits by the bridge and up to Wapaka Street, or just south of Wapaka. So that would be segment 2.
So unlike this year, next year it should be two segments. They're gonna rip up one, complete one, and then rip up phase 2, and then complete phase 2, correct?
Correct. And being that it's all tore out, and until we actually have a contractor that's assigned to this and how they would go about it as far as maybe pouring the north half of the road and finishing that, that's all uncertain right now. It's just project limits for the specials as far as trying to do that and trying to get a construction timeline.
Which I think it's gonna be a little bit nicer to only have half of it ripped up, get half of it done, do the other half, get that done instead of the entire stretch. Especially that middle point is kind of the breaking point that you can kind of get traffic to that center point in town yet for the most part, one way or the other.
Nothing more, Robert?
That is all for my report.
Okay, thank you. Next is future agenda items. Still talking about that large item disposal service. And then downtown parking fee. Anybody else comes up with anything else, let us know. We can add it. Other than that, I'm looking for a motion for adjournment. Motion made by Mr. Ritchie, seconded by Mr. Herder. Adjournment, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?